I used to take down enemies with just a piece of rope. Now here I am getting fined by the HOA for a potted plant on my porch. Life's got a wicked sense of humor, you know? Folks see a quiet man trimming his hedges, minding his own business, and they think they've got the whole story. What they don't see is what happens when you push that man too far, especially when you threaten the one person he'd do anything to protect. That's how this started, not just another HOA spat, but a full-blown reckoning all set in motion by a knock at my door that still echoes in my head. I'm David Peterson, and if you think retirement means peace and quiet, you've clearly never lived under a power-hungry HOA president. My little suburban life in Willowbrook, my so-called paradise, turned into a battlefield. And it started with what looked like harmless harassment. Nothing in Willowbrook had seemed off when my wife Elena and I moved in 3 years back. She's the architect type, can turn any backyard into a magazine cover, flowers, fountains, fairy lights, the whole deal. Me, I like the practical stuff. Landscaping, getting dirt under my fingernails, keeping every line sharp and precise. Folks admired it, but they didn't know that kind of discipline gets hammered into you after 20 years in the military, when attention to detail means coming home alive. Everything shifted 6 months ago when Richard Harrison got himself elected as the new HOA president. The guy before him was harmless, just made sure people cut their grass and didn't park a boat out front. But Richard, mid-50s, probably ex-military, but with something twitchy in his eyes, wore authority like it was body armor. First meeting, he rolled out new regulations, grass no higher than 2.5 inches. Every door color personally approved by him, even the flower pots had to pass inspection. We got our first violation notice for grass being 1/2 inch too tall, $200 fine. Elena measured it herself. At most, it was 3 inches. I paid the fine. She was angrier at me for not fighting it than she was at Richard for writing it. But the notices kept coming. Our front door was too vibrant and suddenly cost us $350. Then Elena started noticing Richard's new assistant, Carol Jenkins, snapping pictures of our place from across the street at all hours, and a camera popped up on a utility pole aimed straight at our house. The utility company played dumb. That's when I got serious. I rigged up my own security system, nothing fancy to the untrained eye, but the kind of high-def night vision gear you pick up working black ops. Elena caught me one night soldering connections in the garage, and her eyes lingered on an old photo me in desert camo standing by a sign that read Special Forces Operations Base. She didn't ask, but I saw her looking at me differently. Richard started watching me too, real focused, like he was trying to remember where he'd seen me before. During one awkward run-in by the mailbox, he asked if I'd ever served overseas. I brushed him off, but that just made him more curious. Carol, meanwhile, seemed obsessed with my arms. She probably caught a glimpse of the faded trident tattoo I usually kept covered. It was obvious by then that this was no normal HOA nitpicking. By the 4th week, the fines hit $750 for excessive garden decoration. Elena was at the end of her rope. But something told me direct confrontation wasn't the play. Richard was probing for weaknesses. He knew something. That night, as I stashed the stack of violation letters in my old footlocker, Elena asked David, "There's something you're not telling me, isn't there?" She'd been by my side through nightmares, scars, all the late nights where I'd wake up reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. I could see the worry building in her eyes. You ever dealt with an HOA president who acts like a dictator? Yeah, this was personal. Then the harassment ramped up. Elena found out the new camera wasn't city installed. It ran to a shed in Carol's backyard. Richard had our schedules mapped out when I left for consulting gigs when Elena worked from home. That's not community improvement, that's stalking. She brought me printouts of everything she documented, and suddenly I saw how deep this went. Richard hired enforcement officers, Max and Jake muscleheads in their 30s, all gym and zero brain. They strolled our street like bad actors in a knockoff action flick. Dead plants appeared on our doorstep. Elena's car got keyed with slurs, garbage dumped on our lawn at midnight. Police called it kids' pranks, but I knew psychological warfare when I saw it. I watched Richard from my kitchen window. He'd stare at our house like a conductor, enjoying his own orchestra of misery. That's when I stopped waiting. Called in sick and tailed Richard. Saw him meet a nervous-looking suit who handed over a folder thick with documents. Their body language said it all. This was a targeted op, not random bullying. The attack came on a Thursday. I had a work meeting downtown. Elena was home alone. She texted me at 10:30, Carol and the goons at the door claiming emergency inspection. My gut twisted. Through the cameras, I watched them smash Elena's pottery, destroy family photos, stomp on my old medals, rip up her garden, the whole 9 yards. Elena tried to call the cops. Max shattered her phone. Jake shoved her so hard she hit the counter. "Sell this dump and get out," they sneered, Carol filming it all with glee. I made it home in 12 minutes flat, adrenaline and muscle memory carrying me through the door. Max and Jake didn't hear me. First mistake. I dropped Max with a knee strike that left him howling on the floor, caught Jake's punch, and put him down hard. Carol's mouth hung open as I tied up the goons with a garden hose and checked Elena for injuries. She was shaken but not broken. "Who are these people?" she asked, voice trembling. "And who are you, David?" The answer came in the fallout Elena and I dug into Richard's past. Court-martialed, dishonorable discharge, redacted documents about betrayal, breach of trust. Everything pointing to a mission gone bad. A neighbor confirmed it. Richard had moved here with an old score to settle against a special forces guy who'd ruined his career. Carol's detailed reports, intercepted by a fed-up neighbor, sealed it. This wasn't about HOA regulations, it was revenge. So I went to the HOA meeting room, packed Richard in full control until I played the video. Max and Jake wrecking our home, Carol filming, Elena screaming. Dead silence. I rolled up my sleeve, revealed the trident and the scars. I served 20 years as a Navy SEAL. Richard Harrison betrayed his unit, sold us out, got men killed. I caught him. That's what this has all been about. Carol snapped, turned on Richard, blurted out the whole story, how he'd planned everything as payback. Richard tried to play the victim, calling me unstable, but the crowd wasn't buying it. Elena, strong as ever, stood by my side and told the whole room, "It's time we take our community back." She was elected HOA president that night. First act reform. The rules transparency term limits, no more petty tyranny. The cops arrested Richard within hours, federal charges pending. The neighborhood rallied, everyone pitching in to rebuild what Richard had destroyed. Elena's garden came back stronger, full of plants that meant something. The neighbors actually started to look out for each other. Carol, as part of her penance, became Elena's right hand, helping repair the damage. Standing in that garden, months later, coffee in hand, I realized the battlefield had followed me home, but this time I wasn't fighting alone. Never underestimate the quiet neighbor just tending his garden. And if you think peaceful folks won't defend themselves, you're dead wrong. You come after my family, you wake the vulture. So, was I justified? Did I go too far? Let's hear your take. What would you have done if the war came to your doorstep? Drop a comment, share your own HOA nightmares. Sometimes real justice starts when ordinary people say enough.